Welcome! My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, the animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. This week, Emma Martin is back on the podcast to talk with me about Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, also known as Tangled the Series. The show follows familiar characters Rapunzel and Eugene as they settle into a new life in the Kingdom of Corona. With a rich cast of characters, a beautiful tapestry of magical lore, and a myriad of groundbreaking songs to discuss, we can't wait to dive into it. So let's get started and let's get animated. Emma, we are finally talking about Tangled the series.
Yes, indeed. Took us long enough.
Took us long enough. I've been watching this, before we even started doing the podcast. Like, Tangled the series was one of those shows that is on my, golden tier of my master list of things I want to talk about. And it's been there since the beginning. And now here we are,
dust.
finally talking about it because, just like we say this sometimes, like with topics, like with Tangled, the movie that we talked about that recently. Go listen to that episode. It's just like, it's so good and so important to me that I don't want to mess it up.
Absolutely. I totally understand. And the crazy part, though, is that I feel like that list is always being adding more shows to it. Like, it's just a never-ending list, and that's okay. That's great. That's art. That's just life. But it's just
it is. I could be doing this podcast forever and never catch up because I have so many things to talk about all the time.
Honestly, oh my gosh, there are so many, I know this is just, this isn't just anime, this is animation in cartoons and animation in movies and animation in video games, Oh my gosh, endless.
Yeah, it is endless, and it's wonderful. It's we just really like to geek out. I always have so much to say, and there's always more stuff to talk about, and even if I did this show every single week, I wouldn't be able to catch up with it all. But that brings me to a good point that I should say at the beginning of the episode, just so people will hear it. We are doing a special June extravaganza where every single week in June, we're going to have a new episode for Fanimated. So instead of our usual every other week kind of thing, we're going to do every single Tuesday of June. And if you're looking at your calendars right now, you can see there are not 4, but 5 Tuesdays in June. So that's right. Get ready for 5 episodes in a row. Actually, kind of 6 episodes in a row, because this episode that we're recording right now comes out on the 26th. And then the next week is June already. So boom. See, we'll
6 weeks.
New episode next week and the following weeks after that. So doing that just because, partially because I just feel like everything is getting canceled right now with the, COVID-19 crisis. And we are one thing that doesn't need to be canceled and can continue to be creating things.
Amen.
And because, just like you said, I have so much to talk about, especially right now. I feel very behind on all the things I want to talk about, and I have a little extra time because of all of this madness. So we're just going to do that in June, and we're going to see what happens.
I love it.
You've got some fun episodes coming up for sure. But this week, we are talking about Tangled the series, like we said. It's been one that I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time. And if you listen to the last episode, I got to talk about Tangled the series with Bex, who is Tangled BEA on Tumblr. She's a phenomenal human being and a huge, huge fan of Tangled and Tangled the series. And in my very first episode of Fanimated, I read one of her posts at the end because her post and just, you know, her entire blog inspired me to kind of embrace my love for animation, despite being an adult animation fan, and just kind of helped inspire me to make the podcast in the first place. So if you haven't listened to that last episode, definitely go listen to that. But it's just another reason, like, why Tangled the series is so important to me, because it definitely sits as another kind of marking point in my animation fandom journey. So it just, like, you know, despite being a show that's like marketed towards, you know, really young girls, like I think it's marketed towards the 6-year-old to 11-year-old bracket or something like that. I always run into adult fans of this show, and truly, like, as Bex puts it, love the harmless thing you love. Like, you can love whatever it is as long as it's not hurting other people, and it's not. Obviously, this is like these shows are inspiring people, and
if anything, it's healing people.
yes, absolutely. And so this show just sits in a very special place in my journey and in my heart and soul. So let's get started with a quick synopsis. For those of you who don't know, Tangled the series is the Disney Channel original show about Rapunzel from the Tangled film, obviously. It starts like pretty soon after the movie. So the entire series spans like almost 2 years, I think.
Yeah, it's about 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and it all happens in between the ending of the film and then the beginning of the short,
which is called Tangled Ever After.
Ever After, thank you. So all happens between the end of the film and the beginning of the short Ever After. So it basically is, she has been rescued from the tower. She is back in Corona, but before her and Eugene get married. So there are 3 seasons of epicness that happen. And the basic premise, at least at the beginning, the inciting incident is the fact that, and this whole series starts with a made-for-TV film called Tangled Before Ever After. So make sure you watch that before you watch the series, because sometimes people get confused and they just jump into the series and they're like, what happened? Well, the inciting incident happens in the film. So watch that. And I'm pretty sure this is all on Disney Plus, so you have no excuse.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Good. So in Tangled Before Ever After, she and her best friend and lady-in-waiting, Cassandra, go on a little adventure because the king is obviously very protective of his daughter because he lost her once, he's not going to lose her again. But she wants to be free and like experience the world and experience everything that the world has to offer because she's been trapped forever. And so she and her friend Cassandra, they like sneak out and they go to where the flower was found, and there are these like black rocks shooting out and growing there, and Rapunzel touches one and her hair comes back. Her long golden hair grows back all of a sudden. The rocks start to glow and they kind of start chasing her. So that is the inciting incident of, okay, her hair is back. Her hair does not have the same healing properties that it used to, but it's incredibly strong and it can't be cut by normal methods. And the black rocks grow and like are coming for her slowly but surely. So that's kind of like the overarching like mystery that needs to be solved is, what are these black rocks? What do they have to do with her and the sun drop and the sun and the flower and all of that? But despite that, it's like, it's just so great delving into Eugene and Rapunzel and all of their new friends and all the new characters, including Cassandra and Varian and Lance and all these fantastic, wonderful people.
What I like about this series is that not only does it have an overarching plot that's really intriguing and really fun and epic, but also you have a lot of day in the life experiences with Rapunzel and her friends and just the daily life that she is learning how to live now that she's no longer in a tower. So I like that there's just a balance between the big story and just the day in the life.
I agree. Like, it's a good balance. And I absolutely adore all the little things. Like, every single character grows in this series. But Rapunzel, especially, like, at the beginning of the show, she is really naive. Like, she doesn't know a lot about the world, and they don't brush that aside. Like, they go into that. Like, she doesn't know what, certain social protocols dictate, or just things about the world in general. Like, she's very curious and, like, wants to know all those things, but she doesn't always have the street smarts to deal with everything properly. And that's where, Eugene and Cassandra help her kind of get back into society.
Definitely. It's all about like each character develops in their own way, and all of them are a piece in Rapunzel's story. They make up, her journey and how she kind of finds herself. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
she knows who she is, but she's learning who she is in a completely different world. So all of those characters are really aiding her on this path, and even if they don't know it, like, sometimes they're growing as much as she is,
Right.
but they're all helping each other in the end. Just growing as people, learning to fight for the kingdom they love.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really incredible.
Even Rapunzel specifically, looking at season 1 with Queen for a day, and she basically, is acting queen for a couple of days, and she's overwhelmed and she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't like the idea or the prospect of being the queen. And by the end of the series, she is like, she just fills that role so well, and she, like, takes on so much responsibility, and she has such a heart and love for her kingdom and its people, and that she's going to be a great queen someday.
Absolutely. Because, like, in that episode, Queen for a Day, she had to learn about making a really hard decision when you're, like, faced up against something personal that you want to work on, and when you're thinking of the greater good for a whole people. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that episode so intriguing because, she is a very positive, uplifting person, and she wants every single situation she's in to be a win-win-win situation.
Yeah.
But that's not reality always, so,
Mm-hmm.
or ever. So it's just really fascinating to see how she struggles to go against this personality she's always had, this outlook on life, and have to, put that aside in order to make a decision. And then, by, like you said, by the end of the series, she is totally ready to be queen, because she has, like, found a balance between, like, having that positive outlook on life, but also realizing that things aren't as easy as they might seem, that there are challenges and decisions that have to be made in order to help the greater good in the end.
Absolutely. She changes a lot. So going on with characters, another character that we, have seen a lot in the film is obviously Eugene. And I would argue that this show is as equally about him as it is about Rapunzel. He is just, Eugene is just fantastic.
I love him. He's great.
I mean, we've talked about
Yes.
this in the Tangled episode. We all love Flynn Rider. We love Eugene.
Yeah, best Disney prince ever.
For sure. And he, at the beginning of the series, is like, I mean, he just wants to settle down. He wants to marry Rapunzel, and he wants to settle down in this kingdom. And, he's kind of, he's finally gotten what he wants. He's got, like, his new dream, cute. And for him, he's, like, satisfied with that. But of course, Rapunzel is like, no, actually, like, there's more out there. And Eugene and Rapunzel's relationship, people need to be taking notes, because this is how you do this is how you make a good on-screen relationship. They communicate. They have to communicate, and if they don't communicate clearly, that's where they have troubles. And they're so supportive of each other, and just, like, aware of each other. And they really do have other things going on besides just them. Like, it's a healthy relationship where they are also healthy individuals that are really, they're best friends. They come together. They support each other and build each other up. But then they also, like, you know, Rapunzel has Cass and Eugene has Lance, and they can talk to other people too, and they you know, have different interests and different things going on, and they're just very supportive of each other. And every time they have a cute little scene together, it's always like the most wonderful, perfect thing. Like, Eugene is always there to listen, and he doesn't, like, you know, even though he knows like Rapunzel is you know, has a lot to learn, like, he is never like reprimanding or never like trying to say I know better. He's always just like, let me listen to how you're feeling right now, and let's come up with a next step action plan. Or sometimes even like you know what, like Queen for a Day is a great example. Like, after Queen for a Day, it's like he you know, checks on her, is like, are you okay, like what do you want to do? It's just so refreshing to have a couple who are communicative like that on screen.
I definitely agree. Like, they are very honest with each other and upfront, and it's really refreshing to see on the screen, because it's almost like obviously they're like totally perfect, so like it's kind of an impossible standard, but at the same time they are also a very practical relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the things that they do are things that people should be doing in real life.
Yes.
And like with how they're, you know, communicating with each other. And yeah, they still mess up. Like, there's still, you know, obviously episodes where they miscommunicate, but then once they figure that out, they talk to each other. They're really good at holding each other accountable, and
Yes.
just, you know, keeping in touch with like, hey, where are we at, checking in, like you mentioned, with the proposal in general.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, Eugene proposes, is it like 2 times, and then Rapunzel once, almost, right? Before the final one?
Before the final one, at least. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what I like is they're near the end of season 3, or maybe it was midway through, but there was a scene where Eugene was with Rapunzel, and he was just like, hey, so I just want to check in about, you know, the proposal, marriage,
Mm-hmm.
like super casual, that I would just like, when I watch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so honest with each other. like, but anyway, like, I like how they always like check in with each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Eugene is a really good listener. He's making sure like, hey, are we on the same page? Like, I know,
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to respect your dreams, and I want to make sure that like you are ready as much as I am ready to seal the deal. And that's what I love.
It's so cute. And then of course with Eugene as well, we just get to learn so much more about his backstory and everything that goes along with that, which is just fantastic. I absolutely love Lance, and I love all of their, you know, stuff about you know, being thieves together. And there are a couple episodes where you get to see young Lance and Eugene being roguish thieves, and it's so fun. And then of course we get to actually meet Eugene's father, which is so cool.
Oh my gosh. When it comes to Eugene's father, I just like, I saw it coming. I don't know about you. I was just like, they're gonna make him a secret prince, aren't they? They just had to do it. Like, just like I feel like even if Eugene was not a real prince, I'd be okay with it. Like,
Yeah.
You know what? A princess of a big kingdom decides to marry what was once the common thief, like, and she's okay with that because they love each other. But I mean, it was kind of a fun twist to throw in the prince aspect. But I just like a couple episodes beforehand, I was like, are they oh yep, he's definitely a prince.
Oh man, I remember when the episodes were still coming out, because I watched most of the series as it was releasing, and it was really early season 2 that people were starting to create that Dark Prince Eugene theory. Like, as soon as we knew that the Dark Kingdom existed, people were like, what if Eugene, or what if Varian, or what if, especially because you see Kieran in that backflash when you first see the Dark King, and you see Adira and the other Brotherhood members there too. So it's just like all of the theories started going. But yeah, it was satisfying when they finally revealed that. And I love the way they do reveal that he is a prince and his father is alive. And I love that his father is so different from him in a lot of ways.
They're so different.
Oh gosh. Yeah. His father is Eugene is like very charismatic and knows how to read a social situation, and his father does not.
I really appreciate that when they first met, like, it wasn't a super dramatic, like, oh my gosh, you're my father, what? It was like very, like, not that. I don't even know how to describe it, but like, I liked how it was
casual.
More gradual. Yeah, gradual and casual. Like, not saying like, hey, what's up, Dad? Like, not to that extent casual, but
yeah,
being like, wow, like, you're my father. Like, this is insane. Like, tell me about why things are the way they are. Once again, it just like is very practical, which
yes.
I love. It makes me as an audience member relate. I'm like, yeah, I'd probably react that way too. Like,
yes.
Well, maybe not me. I'm kind of dramatic, but.
And I love Eugene's song, his identity crisis song, Everything I Thought I Knew. And
yes, it's so good.
It's so good. It makes me sad, and yeah, he's just changed his identity so much, and then he's learning this new part of himself and his past, and he doesn't know what to do with that. And ultimately what he does do with it is he makes it his own. Like, his father is telling him, this is what our family has done for generations, protect the Moonstone. And he is like, well, I am going to do that by ending this. You know what I mean? And
right.
And he's like, it was my destiny to come here, but my destiny is not to stop Rapunzel. It's to save my father. And I love that too.
Oh, so good. So good. Because like, things can be passed down to us from family to family, but at the end of the day, like, sometimes things get lost or things get twisted and we lose sight of what's really important. And Eugene brings out what's important. He's like,
yes.
Well, the Moonstone at the end of the day is a rock. And Rapunzel is a soul who is amazing, and he obviously loves her.
Yes.
And so just like shifting that perspective is so important to their relationship.
Absolutely. And it is kind of cool. Like, I love all of the like lore that this show brings about with the Moonstone and the Sun Drop and all of it. And the idea that like this has been part of Eugene's family history for so long, and yet he's the one to find the Sun Drop. Like, he's the one that like found Rapunzel and like fell in love with her. I don't know. I think it's perfect and beautiful in every way. Also, before we move on from Eugene, and we'll merge our way into Cass next, because I love Eugene and Cass's relationship.
Oh, how can you not?
Oh, like, rewatching the series, I was just like, yes, they are hilarious, because at first, and they grow into such a like sibling bond. That's what they are. They're like, they do have sibling bickering sometimes. And Cass is at first really wary of him because, to her, Eugene is just a thief who got the princess and, it isn't to be trusted and all of this. And, Eugene is just like, because Cass is very cold towards him. And, she's kind of like, she's the opposite of Rapunzel in a lot of ways. And she's a little more, a little more practical, more down to earth.
Pessimistic.
Yes. Just like reality checks everything. And she and Eugene are like bickering, and just like their banter back and forth is so great. And I think it's just
So
hilarious how much they pick on each other. And obviously before Cassandra's betrayal, it turns into a loving banter between the two, you know, it just siblings picking on each other. And I love it. And I think it's hilarious. And I love them.
Yeah, their relationship is just so wonderful. It kind of reminds me actually of my relationship with my brother, who's 2 years apart from me, because he's very much the flamboyant, charismatic, and like goofball of the family. Not that I'm not funny, because I'm hilarious. Thank you very much. But but anyway, whenever I'm around him, like Emma goes into like more realistic, pessimistic mode. Like it's just so funny. Like, and that's just how we bounce off of each other. Is he'll be like, "Oh, Emma, aren't we having a grand time?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, it's so fun. Leave me alone." Like, so like Eugene and Cass's relationship remind me a lot of me and my brother, which is super fun, like to watch, like in front of you. Like,
yes.
Yeah, they banter and it's hilarious. But at the end of the day, they love each other, like as family. Like it is an amazing love that they share, especially because, you know, it's Rapunzel that bonds them both. Exactly. But at the same time, like even without Rapunzel, they have a strong, healthy relationship, which I think is awesome.
Absolutely. So Cass
is my favorite character.
Of course she is. Yeah. Well, then you lead the way. What is your favorite thing about her? What makes her your favorite character?
I love Cass because she is so driven, and like she has dreams too, but isn't necessarily allowed to pursue them up front because like she has a very strong sense of duty and like helping Rapunzel as part of the guard and as her handmaiden. And she wants what's best for the kingdom and what's best for her friends. But she's not like naive. Like she's smart and she thinks about all the different options. She is, you know, obviously like holds some bitterness and struggles with like being vulnerable. But that's like part of what makes her character, you know, so good, is that, you know, you see that flaw and that's okay. And I just love her because she knows what she wants in life. And even though she's not always able to pursue it in her own timing, like she knows who she is and who she wants to be. And she does get a little lost along the way, obviously, because she goes evil for a bit.
Yes.
But, you know, I think that's coming from the insecurity she had inside, like of not feeling properly loved by a mother, of not, you know, being able to grasp her dream because she felt, you know, dragged behind in order to help Rapunzel's dream. And so in a way, she was finally like saying, "No, it's my turn." And she didn't do it in the best way, like, but like her ambition is awesome. And I honestly, her voice is my favorite. She is incredible. Like her belt range, oh my gosh, so good. But like, oh man, she's got like just I can't say it enough. She's got an incredible voice. Like
so good. All of the songs that she sings, they're all fantastic. Like absolutely, Eden Espinosa is seriously the best ever. Like Crossing the Line, Waiting in the Wings, Nothing Left to Lose. Literally all of them are so good. And she's if a song has her in it, it's gonna be amazing.
What I love too is she has all the solos that are like very passionate and like the ones that you always want to sing. Like you're like, oh my gosh, that's the character who has their song about finding themselves or whatever. Like that's always the solo that you want to belt and play the part of. And she definitely has a lot of those. Like
So for her whole journey, her story, I have two things to say. And one thing is going to be negative and one thing is going to be positive. Okay. So I'll start with the positive thing. What I like about it, and truly her journey is equally as important, again, as Rapunzel's. Like, this show is about her as well, about Cassandra. And with her betrayal, with her taking the moonstone, with her getting manipulated, here's what I like is that they clearly had a plan, like from one of the very first episodes with the tournament. We get introduced to her insecurity about not being, I guess not being special in a way of putting it. She
Right.
she
She's
wants to
not the
be
center of attention,
she's just like, she's worked so hard, she wants to be in this tournament, and then Rapunzel comes along and kind of steals the spotlight, and she gets really frustrated by that, which is valid. And obviously even there you see her falling into that a little bit. And so, and then again throughout the entire series, like, you see little snippets of her fault in that way. And so I'm grateful that the crew had a plan, and and then you get waiting in the wings, you get all of that. And then she has the betrayal, and ultimately, she gets back on track and it's all good. My negative point is that I still feel like that motivation isn't strong enough for her to have done what she did.
I would agree.
For her to steal the moonstone, like, what happens is Centauri, who's like the big bad evil, who wants to destroy Corona, manipulates her, and first off tells her of her heritage, of her past that she forgot, that Cassandra is the daughter of Mother Gothel, and Gothel chose Rapunzel over taking care of her own daughter, which is terrible. And Mother Gothel wasn't a good mother, though, so it's like, okay, thank goodness you got away from her, and she grew up with the captain of guard, and he is amazing. It was obviously a very good father to her. So Centauri shows her that past, and then Centauri's like, you've always been overshadowed by Rapunzel and all these things, trying to turn her against Rapunzel. And I just don't think it's a strong enough motivation for her to do what she did, because she's also, like you said, Cass is the street smart, like, she, a little more on the pessimistic side, which in this case should have been her advantage. She should have been able to be like, wait, who are you? What are you doing? Like, if this is true, like, why should I mean, I just feel like her friendship with Rapunzel should have trumped whatever this random person was saying,
Right. But at the same time, like, when we get really angry, it's hard to control how we feel. Like, sometimes our emotions go everywhere and we choose to do reckless things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Just out of our anger. So I could see like how that could be incorporated. But I do agree, it's not the strongest motivation. Like, it makes sense, but it's just not quite enough. So when they were the episode before Cassandra turns bad, there's like this what was it, like a prophecy or something that was saying that one of them would turn against. So they were pointing towards Eugene like the whole time, but I was like, it's not going to be Eugene. It's got to be Cass. There's no way. Like, yeah. And then, it was Cass in the end. But it did like trouble me that she was willing to throw it all away to get this moonstone. I was like, really? Like, why are you this upset? Like, I get why you're upset, but like, right, why this much? Like, why so strongly? Like,
exactly. Like, she has been so dedicated to keeping Rapunzel safe and doing her duty. Why would she, like, there needed to be more for her to throw away all. It's just like, I feel like a stronger motivation would have been Eugene's motivation, which was, oh, I'm going to stop Rapunzel because I want to keep her safe. if Cass had a similar motivation, I would be more okay with it, because I could see Cass, you know, what if Xantiri like manipulated her into thinking that something really, really terrible would happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you think about like another favorite character coming up, Mr. Varian, like with his like turn, it was because it was something very personal, like the result of his father. So like that was the flipping point. And for Cass, yeah, I think it would have been better if like Rapunzel's life was on the line.
And
it would be more personal, you know?
It would be more personal. And they go an entire season with Cass as this villain, and it just doesn't play off very strong because you know what? It isn't a strong enough motivation, because Cass herself, even from the first episode of season 3, is unsure about what she did. And granted, like, because she's even like, she stops and listens to Rapunzel, and then Rapunzel says the wrong thing, which is, you know, wait. And Cass is like, no, and that triggers her off again. But like, even from the very beginning of what she did, she's uncertain about it. And then like, Cass is such a strong, independent character. For her to be so manipulated for so long, even when she is having doubts by Xantiri, like, doesn't click with me. It doesn't sit. I just wish there was a stronger motivation. That's all.
Right. Because even like you said, like, part of Cass's jealousy was like that Mother Gothel chose Rapunzel over her. And so she's always felt like second best in her whole life when it comes to things, which is a very relatable struggle for sure. But yeah, Mother Gothel was no mother to be excited about.
No.
Like, she was horrible. And so she wasn't really missing out on anything. It was just the fact that she wasn't chosen, and that really bothered her. But every time there was a scene with Xantiri, I would get so annoyed. Because she's just like, I mean, well, yeah, she's manipulative, and like the things she would say, I'd be like, Cass, this little lady is so stupid. Can't you like see that she's like taking advantage of you? But at the same time, like, when you're in a manipulative situation, sometimes you can't always, you know, get past that barrier.
But again, like, I could see that happening to Rapunzel sooner than it happening to Cassandra, because Rapunzel has lived in a manipulative situation her entire life. Like, she could fall into that again. Like, she's been groomed for that. But Cass, like, you see throughout the whole series, and even the fact that we've seen her like this before, and she has learned and grown from it. So where was that in season 2? Like,
right.
Not to mention the fact that, like, this show, and we'll talk about Marion in a second, the show does it again, like, turns the friend into the villain, which we'll talk about Varian again in a second, but I feel like as much as I love Varian, keeping Varian as the villain would have been a better choice.
Because it feels like too repetitive?
Because it feels repetitive, because I feel like Varian's motivations were stronger than Cass's. And yeah, I guess I think Cass is a weak villain. That's all I have to say.
I would agree. Before we talk about Varian, as we've said that multiple times, I just want to point out to the listeners that I called the fact that Cass was Mother Gothel's daughter on the first episode. Yeah, get it. So I'm watching the first episode, or the film or whatever. And Cass comes on screen, however you would say that for animation, but she comes into the story, and I see her face and the color of her hair, and I'm like, huh, you know, she looks a lot like Mother Gothel. And I just like let that sit in the back of my mind. And then, you know, it just like was packed away because, you know, silly me, why would I think that? Then when they revealed that she is Mother Gothel's daughter, I was like, I knew it.
Oh man. And see, and this again is why I like Varian better, is because like when the show first started, people were like, Cassandra's going to be a villain. Cassandra's going to be a villain. She looks like Mother Gothel. Oh, all of her color scheme is like a dark color scheme and all this stuff. And it's like, and then Varian turned out to be a villain, and I was like, see, look, a twist. Because like we were all thinking Cassandra was going to be the villain, and then it wasn't. And it was Varian, the cute little cupcake cinnamon roll that we all love and are obsessed with. And then it, you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was a better twist. And granted, I did not think I was not a fan of the Cassandra is Mother Gothel's daughter theory. I am very impressed that you like were thinking about it right away. Like, if people said it, I was always like, nah, that's not gonna happen. So I was wrong. It's okay.
Oh my gosh. Kelly, why don't you tell me about your favorite character?
Guys.
I don't know if you guys follow Kelly's Instagram, but she can be found on Instagram at Candidra.
Yeah, and Fanimated podcast. I'm always on Instagram talking about what I'm watching recently.
But
yes.
She posts a lot about Varian because she loves him.
I post a lot about Varian. Okay, guys. Okay. If you've listened to this podcast at all, you will know that I really love How to Train Your Dragon. And
what?
I just went all now.
What?
When I watched this show, I was like, oh my gosh, Hiccup is entangled. Varian is basically Hiccup in the Tangled universe. Just throwing it out there. He's my favorite type of character. He's a complete dork, a complete cinnamon roll, and has a very big issue with his dad.
And is an inventor. Like, I mean, Varian's more like alchemist, but like, yes. You know, that's that research mindset.
Guys, Varian is the best. He is best boy. So basically they go to, Rapunzel and Cass go to Varian to help figure out what's going on with Rapunzel's hair. And he is this dorky kid. I think he's like 14. And he is like obsessed with alchemy and science and not magic, science. It's not magic. That's an important thing to note. Not magic. And so what I love about him, what I adore about him is he is so, at the beginning, I immediately fell in love with him because he is so bent on just like doing, you know, something that his father is proud of. And he is so inventive and like nothing's going to get in his way of just like, of learning and discovering and creating. And he's always trying to think of ways to help. And, but of course his problem, much like Hiccup, is that, he messes things up a lot. So, in the very first episode, we see him and, he's trying to like, he's got these big machines that are going to help create like, hot running water for his village. But of course they end up exploding, and causing more damage than helping, you know? And it's just so sad because his father cares for him very, very deeply, but his father does not understand Varian's alchemic obsession, and is more just like trying to keep everyone safe from Varian. And so what I love about Ed Varian's story is that, like, I mean, when the crew was creating this character, there's no doubt everyone is going to love him. Like, and in this fandom especially, some people are in this fandom just because of Varian. And I don't blame them one bit. And then what they do then in middle of season 1, they create this rift, and Queen for a Day, my jaw hit the floor when that came out. I was like, this is the best scene in history, which might not be true, but at the time I was just like, oh my gosh, because his of course it's extra sad because it's Varian's doing. I apologize. I'm just totally taking over this conversation about Varian.
That is okay. You go, girl.
He you know, Varian is trying to help. Again, he tries to help and then something goes wrong. He is trying to figure out what these rocks are made of, what these black rocks are doing, because they're invading his village. They're coming after Rapunzel. He's trying to help. But what he does, he ends up accidentally like encasing his father in amber, and he goes to Rapunzel for help. And he sings the best song, "Let Me Make You Proud."
Make you proud.
Yes, and he's voiced by Jeremy Jordan, I should say, and
yes.
Jeremy Jordan. So good.
Oh my gosh, he is great. I just could listen to his voice all day. Also, he is, my gosh, such an extreme belter, and it's phenomenal.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, who God gave you that voice? Like what?
Yes.
Like
yes. And so, and he goes to Rapunzel, and of course, this is what we were kind of hinting at earlier. Rapunzel has to choose helping her kingdom over helping Varian at that moment, because her responsibility is to the rest of the kingdom that's in crisis right now. And so he goes back, and then at the very end of this, and he finds his father completely encased, and at the very end of this episode, there's a reprise of that song, and it starts out and Varian is just so distraught over his father. And by the end of that little reprise, he has turned evil. It's so good. He is like,
isn't there a change in the key of the music too? Like by the end of it, it like ends with like a haunting tone, and you're like, oh no,
oh no. And even Rediger, oh, by the way, Rediger is Varian's pet raccoon and is the cutest. Rediger is even like hiding under the table from Varian because he's like, this isn't Varian. And so he's just like,
yes.
And it's so good, and no one saw it coming. Okay, no one saw Varian turning evil. Like it was so, like, my mind was blown. I like that feeling was truly like that was one of the only Disney like villain turns that I've ever actually been shocked by. And that's why I love it so much better than Cass's, because it's like it just comes out of left field, but it feels earned.
It still makes sense.
Yes, it feels like Varian has strong motivation for this, and it makes sense from an audience point of view, but yet you didn't expect that from him at the start of the season, you know? And that's why I think Varian is such a stronger villain. And I think it would have been a stronger writing choice to have Cass just have more control over herself, especially since Varian is this kid, okay? Like he isn't strong, and we have seen in past episodes he is not strong enough to make his own choices, that good choices. You know what I mean? Like he's
still growing up.
And so he's just this poor, desperate, terrified child, and so he makes the wrong choices. And it's so much more interesting to me than this young woman who knows so much and is so strong, independent, and strong-willed, for her to just fall in line to the whims of this, evil wizard person. So totally. So anyway, guys, I could just talk about Varian for 5 hours.
Yeah. So to tag off of you, what's beautiful about Varian's story is that after all of this craziness with him going evil, eventually he does turn back to the good side. And that's the best part of this series, in my opinion, because like he has realized his mistakes, and him and Rapunzel finally reconcile.
Yes.
But the best part of it all is that he uses that mistake that he had to help other people. So in this example, when Cass goes bad, he tries to talk to her and says, hey, I understand what you're going through. I went evil and rogue for a while, as you may have recall. And he's there to like help make a difference in somebody else's lives. It wasn't just that he and Rapunzel reconciled and then that was that, but he used like that part of his life, that journey, to impact somebody else's story, which was Cass in this case. And as we dive into songs, I'll talk about that later, but like they have a duet where Varian is trying to tell Cass, like, I understand, but it's not the right choice. I promise you, like, please listen because you will regret it, kind of thing. And their duet is amazing. But that's my favorite part about Varian is the ending arc of him not just reconciling, but also being able to impact other people.
Yes, and his entire arc is so good. I love my favorite episode of the entire series is Be Very Afraid, because this show, yes, Varian makes better choices and learns from his mistakes and he moves on, but guess what? He still has consequences from that. And you see him in the season 3. A lot of people don't trust him, and he has Rapunzel's support, and he has the gang support, but like a lot of people in the kingdom, like he's hurt a lot of people, and he feels very, isolated by that, but he wants to make things right again. And Be Very Afraid is like everyone is seeing visions of their worst nightmares. And for Varian, these aren't just visions, these are like, or things that could happen. These are things that already have happened. His greatest fear is his own mistake. Like it are the things that he's done in the past. And that just resonates with me on a personal level of like, and I've talked to Emma about this, I get really, really anxious and frustrated and about mistakes that I made years ago. And they just pop up and I am just burdened by that a lot of the time. And I think a lot of people, have those experiences too. And so for Varian, having these fears, it's not like, oh, this won't happen. It's just in your head. And he's like, no, this stuff has happened and is happening because of the mistakes I made. It just hits so close to home. And that episode is so good. And so Varian is so distraught over this, and he truly has to push past his fear and to, save the day. But like Rapunzel is there to tell him, you are anything but ordinary, and you can do this. Like, yes, that those things were a part of your past, but like we're moving forward together. And that's a huge thing too, is like with all of this stuff with Varian, like he needed other people and he was isolating himself, and he was just like, okay, I can't trust anyone anymore. And that's part of it too that I really love in the first episode of season 3, when he starts towards that journey of being moving past his mistakes, of sitting with Rapunzel in that jail cell, and now there's this extra layer of Rapunzel and Cass having had their breakaway, and Varian is like, how do you learn to trust again? And they're both like, I don't know, like they both have to learn how to trust people again, and they do it together. And Rapunzel and Varian have such a good relationship, like throughout season 3, of trying to figure that out together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Be Very Afraid is my favorite episode, and Varian's entire arc is my favorite. And I do truly love his redemption arc. It is done so well. And then of course he slowly gains the trust of the people in the kingdom back, and all of that as well. So granted, I still think he would have made a better villain if they had kept him a villain, but for a longer period of time, but it's okay because we got this great redemption arc. So
absolutely. So perhaps we should talk about a couple of the other characters throughout the story as well, since we've hit the big ones.
Lance is another phenomenal character I really love.
Yes.
He's Eugene's childhood best friend. They grew up in the orphanage together, and they went on to be thieves together as well. So that's kind of from that part of Eugene's past. And he's just this big, fun, outgoing
He's
guy.
a teddy bear.
Yeah.
He's so fun because he's just like fun and outgoing, big teddy bear, but also like kind of like an elephant who's scared of a mouse. Like he's just like big personality, but also like frightened in his own way as well. And I just love his relationship with Eugene and how they're such great friends, even though like Lance is still learning from his mistakes and learning how to, you know, pursue a life that's not thieving.
Right.
So because like, I mean, when he like meets Eugene, it's not like he goes to being a perfect human being. Like even to the end of the series, he's still like figuring out how to be a good person, and like it's fun to watch. I also appreciate that he's like a bit of the comedic relief,
For sure.
which, you know, we need that along the journey, but also his voice is very gorgeous as well. And I just enjoy the songs that he's in because his voice is incredible.
Yeah, it's James Monroe Iglehart is the voice of Lanson. So good.
And then we also get to see characters such as Maximus and Pascal again, which is really fun because we all love them. But I think one of my other favorite like side characters is Adira. I think she's so cool. She's got this sword that's made from the black rocks, so it's like indestructible. And she's like the super awesome fighter, and like her face is painted half red, half white, which just looks really cool. And yeah, she's like amazing. She's very strong and fierce, and you know, wants the best for Rapunzel as well. And so that's what drives Cass a little insane, because I think there's that competition of like trying to protect Rapunzel or do the best for Rapunzel.
Exactly. And Adira is kind of mysterious too, which is fun. And you know, she first appears at the very end of season 1, and she comes at the very, very end. There's this little tag, and she comes in and she takes her sword and cuts a rock. And of course, everyone is like, oh, she can cut the rocks, but they're indestructible. How does she do that? And we're all like, who is this person? You know, because then there's like, another gap, and we have to wait until season 2 to start. So we're all theorizing, right? And we're like, oh, she's so intense and crazy. But then season 2 starts, and she's a total goof. She's like, yeah, she's super BA and super like cool, but she's also kind of a goofball.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's why Lance really likes her. It's like, oh, she may be strong and intimidating, but I see something. Like, I see you being funny.
She's just very whimsical, and she says and does things that you wouldn't expect.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to describe her. She's unexpected.
Yes, very. Another character I want to talk about real quick is King Frederick.
Aww.
Rapunzel's dad is very sweet, and I love his relationship with Rapunzel. Obviously grows a lot and develops because, like I said, he's very overprotective of her because like he's lost her once. He doesn't want to lose her again. And so I love that contrast in the first season of Rapunzel wanting to be free, but her father kind of inhibiting that in a lot of ways. And he grows and is able to trust Rapunzel to do the right thing more as time goes on. But I also really love his relationship with Eugene.
Yeah, so cute.
So sweet. Because of course, like Frederick is not about
that, you know?
Yeah. He's not about this thief being with his daughter, but they go on adventures together, and Eugene is just silly and not very regal in any way, but they learn to see the good in each other, and They do have such a great bond by the end of it, and they both know that he just knows that Eugene is good for Rapunzel by the end of it, and it's all good and it's all great, and it's just so cute. So just
Yeah.
wanted to say that.
I think that Eugene is like a wannabe Regal. Like he wants to live it up
Yeah.
in a castle and wear fancy
Right.
clothes. He's totally that person. But the king is just like, this is my life. How dare you think you know what it's like?
Yeah, and Eugene isn't necessarily the most responsible, like.
Right. He does tend to be a little reckless. So
Yeah, definitely. And just like, he's the overprotective father. He's going to be wary of any guy that's like by his
right.
daughters. So.
But when they bond, it's so sweet because you're like, that's what we want as the audience. We're like, yes, he likes Eugene. And so yay for their relationship.
There are lots of other awesome characters. Obviously watch the show, check them out. There's just a lot of new characters that they put a lot of time and energy into developing. So it not only do we get to dive deeper into the characters we already know, but then we also get all of these fantastic new characters. So
yeah, and there's still so many characters we haven't mentioned that are awesome. There's just too many to count.
Yes, truly, and they're all very well rounded. So let's talk about the music.
Oh, thank you.
I love the music. It's one of the most important parts of this show because, of course, it's still written by Alan Menken. He wrote the music for the film, and every single one of these songs are good enough to be in a Disney animation feature-length film. They are all absolutely fantastic.
I would agree. Sometimes when you come across shows that are like a branch off of a Disney movie or just some musical cartoon shows in general, like they tend to be a little bit more cheesy songs and, a lot shorter, and they're usually okay. But Tangled, the series, does an amazing job of keeping a good quality of music. Like it's, like Kelly said, it's very movie worthy. Like you could place one of those songs in one of the movies and, the next kid to my left will be singing it every day for a couple of weeks. And so, I mean, it's just a great balance of like fun songs and like heartwarming songs and very passionate belters. Like there is so much variety, and all of it is written so well. Like I don't think there's really one song I can think of that was like, I could do without that song. Like maybe there was like one or two on my list, but I can't think of it right now. I have had a couple of days where I'll just put the music on my play it through my speakers and just like listen to it all day because it's so fun. Like it's fun to sing along to, and yeah, it's overall just absolutely beautiful.
It's beautiful, and they're like we were going through all the voice actors. Like every single one of these voice actors, most of them have done Broadway. They're all great singers, and they just do so well with these songs. This is a hard question for me to ask because I know it's a hard question for me to answer. But do you have a favorite song of the whole show?
That is a very hard question.
Well, let me go first because I've been thinking about this, and it's really hard because season 3 is so rich in songs.
So rich.
So rich. Season 2, I would say overall, season 2, I think has almost all of the songs in season 2, like there are more of them that are like real winners in my books. But season 3. But just for the fact of what it did and of where it sits in the story and how I reacted to it the first time I heard it, Let Me Make You Proud has to be my favorite.
Saw it coming a mile away.
You knew.
It's seriously so good. Take a listen, folks. Like, oh my gosh.
So good. And Queen for a Day is really the point in the series where the music kicks off. And that song, I think, carried the show into the rest of its musical capacity.
Right.
It showed me as an audience member what this music was really capable of. And I love Varian, so.
Yeah. Okay, so for my favorite number, I am going to say Waiting in the Wings by Cass.
Not surprised.
This is the moment where Cass is just expressing how like she's always felt like second best, how she's always had to like put her dreams to the side, and how she's just gonna keep waiting and holding on until that day where she can grasp her dream. And like, just as Varian's song is like speaking like to you so much, like her song like speaks to me, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I feel right now. It's so beautifully put. Especially like being an artist, like sometimes you do feel like you're on the back burner and you're like, oh, am I ever gonna like get there, whatever get there means, am I right?
Right.
And like that song is just so good. I've actually sung it for my Instagram channel, if that's what it's called. And yeah, it's just very powerful to me.
I would agree, and I think it resonates with a lot of people, and you are not alone in that being your favorite, I know. And it was kind of the first song that we really got to hear Cass sing.
Besides just side parts like in group numbers.
Exactly. And so, and it truly is like, it is the crux of the whole show in a way, because in that episode, it really hits home where Cass is at and what everything that comes after is based on, basically. And that episode too is when Rapunzel uses her like the dark incantation and injures Cass because Rapunzel doesn't listen to her and decides to do things her way, and Cass tries to help but gets injured instead. And that song is just it gives us a lot of insight into like the frustrations that Cass is feeling, and it's so good, and it's just done really well.
I agree. What is like your favorite group number or just a second favorite?
Well, I'll go with group number. Okay. I love With You by My Side.
Oh, yes.
So that is Cass, Eugene, and Rapunzel. It is the second to last song in that season. They are about to go to the Dark Kingdom. They're heading there, and they are singing about like, because they're going to their destiny. Like each one of them has a destiny awaiting them in the Dark Kingdom, and they're they're singing. It's the last moment that we have all three of them together as friends before Cass's betrayal. It's before we know that Eugene's father is there, and it's like all the foreshadowing of like, maybe this is the last time we're all together, and it's just a wonderful song. And so definitely that's my favorite group number.
My favorite group number is Next Stop Anywhere. It's just so fun. Like, it's just really catchy and like very fun to sing along to. And it's just, it's very adventurous. Like, here they go, this unstoppable trio, like going off on this adventure, ready to seize destiny. And I think it's really fun. And then I like how each person in the trio like has their own little solo about like their goals and and it's just, I don't know, I find that one really fun.
Definitely. Of course, we can't talk about this music without talking about Nothing Left to Lose.
Oh my gosh. Like, as I said before, probably like one of the greatest songs. This is when Varian is confronting Cass and telling her don't do what you're about to do. Please trust me. You'll regret it. Like, I've been through this. I've walked through this. Guys, I don't know how much I can press this, but like, there are not a lot of movies or even musicals where a villain is confronted by someone who used to be a villain, and they're like duetting back and forth, like basically like an argument in song. But like, it's just like, I have not seen this type of relationship in a duet before. And it was phenomenal. Oh my gosh, so amazing. And like, the stakes are heightened, and they're just both belting at each other because they both have incredible voices, and they can.
They can.
Like, but like, that just shows that like each point of view is a force of power, and like like each one is trying to like make their point, or you know, have their way. And oh my gosh, the clash of the two, it's incredible.
It's so good. And I truly think Nothing Left to Lose is one of the best made for TV songs ever written. Plus, it was just boarded really well and animated so perfectly. It's epic. It's this power ballad duet. It's a duet between a guy and a girl that isn't about love in any way. It's like, it's like, wow. It's like, it is.
Talk about refreshing.
Yeah, refreshing. It is refreshing. It is a dynamic that I love. And these two powerful singers absolutely give it their all. And yeah, it's amazing. There's nothing else I can say.
This is one of those songs that like you're so invested into, like your eyes are so glued to the screen, your ears are listening with full force, that like your housemate will tap you on the shoulder and be like, "Are you okay?" Like, "Oh yeah, just leave me here. I'm just focusing right now."
It does. It's one of those moments, like for me with Let Me Make You Proud Reprise, or there are several moments in the series that truly feel big and cinematic and epic. And that song is one of those moments where you are completely swept away as an audience member. You are invested. It just speaks to me so deeply, and it resonates with a lot of people. And it's done so well. Every single person who put work into that scene, kudos. Wow.
Yes, the lyrics in this song especially, but also in basically all the songs in the series, are very deep and like have purpose. And I love it because it's not just there because they needed a fun song for like a child audience. Like, no, these are songs that are speaking to me as an adult, and it's awesome. One other song I'd like to mention is the Buddy song.
Yes.
It is like one of my favorites. It's more of a, you know, fun one. Because first of all, you have James and Zachary doing a duet, and let me tell you, their voices are fine. And so just imagine those two singing jazz, which who does not want that? Yes. And they're singing this song about being best friends. But what's funny is that in the episode, they are technically high off of like some plant that they accidentally consumed. So it's just hilarious. But anyway, like they're singing about being best friends, and it's just really catchy. And like, I just cannot get enough of their voices singing jazz. So I love that one.
It's so good. And we could go through the entire list of like 30 some songs and talk about each and every one of them. They all deserve so much credit. So man, if you haven't watched the series, or if you're not going to, at least listen to the songs. Like, just please.
Yes. Let those songs inspire you, because I mean, they're amazing.
Amazing. So let's go into the animation a little bit. What I really love about this show stylistically is that the whole premise is that this story takes place in Rapunzel's journal. So she has this journal throughout the series, and she is writing in it and drawing pictures about everything that's happened to her and about all of her journeys. And at the very beginning of the show, like during the opening, you actually see like 3D model like the film of her desk and of her journal. And so then you go into the journal, and then everything is stylistically supposed to be kind of like Rapunzel's art style. And so you get that's kind of how they kind of merge that 2D, so it's not like the film, but it's just really, really, really beautiful and fun. And just like in the film, like Rapunzel's art style is really, really beautiful. And the entire show is like that. All of the backgrounds are phenomenal. And like, it just has this like whimsical feel and this like chalky texture and this like, it's very different from any other like 2D animated series that I've seen. Like it has its own charm and style. Like it's very distinct. And animating wise, there are like all these different layers they have to use to like make it work. And I'm not a professional, so I don't know what I'm talking about most of the time when I talk about animation. This is one of those moments, but just trust me, it's really, really good. And it's obviously like done really well and is very fun and refreshing that it's something different.
I agree. Like at first I was a little taken aback by the 2D style. For me, it took a little bit to get into, but then over time, I really appreciated like the artisticness, the art of it all is
Yes.
what I'm trying to say. It is really beautiful. But what I love the most is the details in the background. Like, so you have the animation of the overall like people and structures and animals, but like the paintings on like her walls and the paintings in her journal that she holds, like those are just slightly different than the regular animation, and those pieces are my favorite because they're so beautiful to look at. So I love how there's different styles of art. Just how like when we were talking in the Tangled episode on this podcast, we mentioned how we really liked the 3D animation and then seeing like Rapunzel's actual art on the walls and like seeing those different styles.
Yes.
In the same way, like I feel that that was done in this as well. And it's even more impressive because like you think, oh, well, it's all 2D. So like, how is there really a difference? But there is such a difference. Like when you look at those little details versus the big picture. And that's what I love is that you can see those different art forms.
Definitely. And on Instagram, if you follow at Rapunzel's Paintings, this is a separate account that Tara Nicole Whittaker made just for her illustrations for Tangled the series, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. And she did all of those illustrations that are, done by Rapunzel. So all of Rapunzel's journal pages and all of the portraits she makes, those are done by this artist. And so you can see all of them, and it's just so sweet and so well done and so pretty. And speaking of, like, this is such a good example of, and you should listen to my talk with Beck's last episode about this, but like this show is just another great example of how fun and impactful the experience is when you get to connect with the creators of the show online.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I follow Caitlin Ritter on all the stuff, all the social medias, all the things she does. She was on the storyboard team. There's so many storyboard artists that I follow, and like it's been so fun to see how much like they interacted with the fans as the show went on. And same with it's just everyone. It's so good and it's so fun, and I love this age we're in when we can do that, when we can follow the artists who make this stuff and they can interact with what the fans are doing. Speaking of that, just makes me think like this fandom is just so good, and it's so fun being a part of this fandom, and it really makes the experience different in a lot of ways. But one of my favorite theories, I just want to say, because I love Varian, and I have to talk about this before we end the episode. The moon variant theory is still one of my favorite theories. So way back in season 1, when Varian turns rogue, everyone was like, moon variant. And I forget who started this theory, but I was on board because like we knew that there's stuff with like, we were like, oh, the moon and the sun, you know, there's stuff going on here, I bet, you know. And so we basically, I say we, it's mostly other people basically they predicted what was going to happen, except they predicted all of this happening with Varian, not Cassandra.
Gotcha.
So they predicted this, like, I mean, to the blue hair and the, like, to that point of like, because, and for Varian, because we were like, oh, he's the villain. And then, and they never explained this, and it's probably just, they use Varian as a red herring a lot in some ways. But they put this blue streak in Varian's hair. Like, what was that design choice? Was that just to be a red herring so that we could all think that it's Varian? And
That's so true.
I still think it would be cool if Varian had secret moon powers. I mean, his dad was part of the Brotherhood. Like, he had a connection to the Dark Kingdom, guys.
That would have been really cool.
Would have been cool. But it's also because I just love Varian so much, and I just want more of him all the time. Anyway, another like AU I really love is just like the Dark Kingdom AU in general, of like what would have been like if everyone had stayed in the Dark Kingdom and Varian grew up there with Eugene, you know, and Eugene grew up there too, and like we didn't even mention this, but Varian and Eugene have a fun relationship too. They're team awesome, and
yes.
It's so
good.
cute because Varian looks up to Eugene so much, and they're just the cutest, and it's so sweet, and it's adorable. Just, that's all.
Right. And there's even some moments where I feel like Varian is the more mature one in the situation as well. So like Eugene can learn from him. He's just like, man, adults are crazy.
Yes. Oh, so true. So true. And since we're talking about AUs and everything, Varian and the Seven Kingdoms AU, it's like all the rage right now. It's so good. And it's basically like Caitlin Ritter and another storyboard artist had kind of put together this like story, if like after the show had ended, if Varian went on his own adventure, what his own adventure would be like. And so it has taken off, and everyone's going off on their own little things about it, and it's so fun to follow, like, you know, what people would think. And there's fun new characters, and like it's just really enjoyable. And this is what I love about fandoms and the internet, is that we can, even though our shows are over, we can still like engage with these characters and think about what would have happened next, and where would these characters have gone. And it's a lot of fun.
Right. It's the fans that carry the story and keep the story living and growing. And that makes me wonder, like, are there any theories about like what happens to Cass? Because at the very end of the show, she decides to go on her own adventure and sees her own destiny, whatever that means. So I'm curious.
You'll have to write a fanfic, Emma.
I guess so. I'm gonna make no. Better yet, I'm gonna write a musical, y'all.
There we go. There we go. Yes. Oh my goodness. So good. So good. Anything else that we didn't talk about Tangled the series that you wanted to touch on?
Man, I could talk about the show for hours. Like, there are just so many things, so many songs, so many characters, voice actors. Like, it's incredible. So I highly recommend that y'all go out and watch it. And yeah, I think it's on Disney Plus. So, you know, what is your excuse?
Yes, I should say that they changed the name to Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, so it might be under that. I don't know for sure. I always call it Tangled the series because that's how it started. But
also, it has the most perfect ending ever. Like, okay, because the ending, guys, we finally, we've gone on this journey with Eugene and Rapunzel, and they've like talked about proposing to each other like 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And then finally at the end, you think that like the show's over, but then they have like one of those extra clips and you're like, oh, thank God, I need some conclusion in my life. And so anyway, they're out on the boat in the lake again, just like how they were when they sang I See the Light.
Yes.
And Eugene finally proposes, and it's just so perfect, guys. Like, that moment is so beautiful because not only are you rooting for them to be together the whole time, but it's also like, wow, these two are ready to get married because they've been through so much together. They've like really grown a lot in the last couple of years and been on way more adventures than they expected. But like, here they still are at the end of the day, and they're still just as in love, if not more in love with each other, from what they've learned from each other. And it's just such a perfect ending.
It's so good.
I'm not crying. You're crying. What?
I would agree. It's so perfect for them. And I love them so much. Yeah, I feel like we say this every episode, but there's so much more we didn't talk about, so you have to go watch it yourself. Now we're at the part of the episode where I ask you, Emma, what have you been watching?
Oh, Kelly.
Oh, Emma.
See, every time we pod, like, Kelly asks this question because, of course, like, that's the question to ask. But like, I keep Kelly regularly updated with what I'm watching.
So maybe I should answer for you.
You could. But basically, what I'm trying to get at here, I've been watching Demon Slayer.
Yes.
Kelly's talked about it a lot, and it sounded really good. And the first couple episodes I watched with Kelly, and they were amazing. And oh my gosh, I love it so much. Like, it is so good and so deep, and like takes me back to Full Metal Alchemist vibes. And it's just one of those really, really well done stories. Like, it's got comedic moments, but also has that deep redemption story. Oh my gosh, characters are great. And so like good. Something listeners you should know is that Full Metal Alchemist has a very special place in Kelly and my heart. Like, this is a big part of our bonding story as friends. Like, we spent like a good couple of days in the summer just binge watching this show together because I had watched a couple episodes and I got hooked, and she was like, let's watch it together. And then when I moved back home, like, we kept video chatting to keep watching the show, and it was awesome. And like, this just brings it all back. So anyway, that was very sentimental, but yes. But Demon Slayer is rockin'. Like, holy crap, I love it. So that's been the show that I've been watching, and then also keeping up to date with Fruits Basket. As they've been
coming back on Monday.
I know. Oh, it's just, that is the one show. Well, there are a lot of shows that give me joy, but that show just always makes me like want to laugh and cry at the same time. I'm like, yes. Like, every time I watch an episode, I'm like, wow, life is just so great. Like, here we are.
It's so wholesome and pure and good and brings true joy to my day.
Yes, agreed. So that's mainly what I've been watching.
I have been watching a lot, which my rapid pace of watching things will slow down now that our office is back open. But I rewatched all of Attack on Titan.
That's insane.
I know, that's like 60 episodes. Like, I did it real quick too. Like, I was impressed with myself how fast I rewatched that. But I hadn't gone back to rewatch it at all since I'd seen it. And it was very helpful. I needed that because the plot is very confusing. Like, it zigzags, and it's the reason I watch the show. It's what I love about the show is the plot and how crazy it is. But I really needed to rewatch that and like pick up on things I did before and kind of connect the dots. Like watching it all in one go instead of just watching season by season is very helpful. And kind of it helped me to see the overarching story and the bigger picture. And now I think I'm ready to dive into the final and fourth season when it comes out, hopefully in the fall, as long as, you know, scheduling changes don't occur. And that will be really good. I'm also, of course, watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's on Netflix.
Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's on Netflix," and I'm like, "I may own all of the DVDs."
Yes. And man, oh man, every time I rewatch that, it brings me such joy, and I just love these characters so deeply. And but little 10-year-old Kelly thought it was the bee's knees, and it still is the bee's knees. So
True.
So we'll have to do an episode on that soon.
Yes, please.
Yes. Also, and I just, so many things. I finally finished my playthrough of Pokemon Shield, so that was satisfying.
Which I finished my playthrough of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I defeated Ganon.
Finally, you did it. You did it, Emma. It
was awesome. Okay, so Kelly and I are very different when it comes to video games.
Yes.
So Kelly's very much, okay, she's the one who, if she's in a battle, she's going to like sneak around a boulder and see if she can get the enemy with her arrow from afar, and she's going to strategize and think about it. And I'm the kid who's just like, let's run and attack this monster, just full force. That's just like who we are.
A lot of this game, I watched her play, and watching Emma play Breath of the Wild, guys, is a wild ride.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
It is, because it's so fun to watch other people play it, because you can solve all the puzzles in so many different ways, that your approach is so much different than mine. And I'm like sneaking around, and you're just like going all in, and it's so fun to watch. So I'm very proud of you that you made it through.
Thank you. So I was just completing a shrine, and like it was called 5 Flames. So you're supposed to like twist this cube so that all 5 flames light up. I didn't do that. I just shot all of the little torch things with flame arrows, and that's how I opened the door. So like it's just it's really funny to like see like how people do certain things. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Thank you for introducing me to the video game.
You're so welcome. It's so funny because I'm over here and I follow the rules. And you break the rules, and I love it. So good. Oh, you know what? Before we leave here, I just want to say thank you to everyone who leaves reviews on Apple Podcast. We got a couple more recently, and I just thank you so much. And so if you feel so inclined, please do that, because I enjoy it. It makes my day. And someone put a recommendation that we need to watch Naruto. And I agree, because you know what? That's a classic I've never watched, and I should get on that.
It is. It really is, especially for us anime nerds. Like, we got to get on that.
Yeah, we need to get on that. So leave us a review. Leave us a recommendation. What should we be talking about next? Or just give us some stars, no pressure. Or send us an email at Fanimated Podcast or all that jazz. And like Emma said, I'm on Instagram a lot at Fanimated Podcast. And if you want to keep up to date on all the things I'm watching, I talk a lot about what I'm watching on Instagram. So check it out. And I do lots of like random polls and other things on Instagram. So if you want a more say in what's going on in the podcast, that's where you should be. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks again, Emma. We'll have you back a lot in June, a couple times, hopefully, as we do our every week in June. We should have a name for that. June Jubilee. June Summer Party.
Just kidding.
Whatever it is, we'll be back next week. So
We'll
Thank
come
you.
up with a fun name.
Yes. Well,
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Hey Fanimators, thank you so much for listening. Your support really means the world to us, and if you enjoyed the show, be sure to share it with your friends and subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify. I've already gone through most of our end credit to-do list, like how you can follow us on social media at Fanimated Podcast, so I'll give a special surprise to those of you who are actually here listening to the end of the episode. So here's a little sneak peek at what's coming next on Fanimated. Next week, Jake Annis is back on the podcast to talk about ReZero Starting Life in Another World. It's an isekai, thriller, horror anime that is absolutely phenomenal, completely turns the isekai genre on its head, and has some of the best character writing I have ever seen. The week after that, June 9th, Emma Martin will be back on the podcast with me talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. And we cannot wait to chat about that. So be sure to check that episode out. Be sure to check out all of the episodes this month. And as always, the music is provided by Purple Planet Music. And a big thank you to Emma for joining me today. Talk to you next week, and be sure to stay tuned and stay animated.
Hello, you've reached Kelly Anderson. I'm not available at the moment, but please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.
How dare you get me into this Tangled show? How dare you? Cass is Gossel's daughter? I can't even. Oh, how dare you? And I was even going through, maybe I should cosplay Cass, but I really am Rapunzel because Gossel and everything. You just wait until I get my hands on you after this quarantine thing. Oh, I'm going on to the next episode. I love you.